We all know this feeling, right? You're hungry, you don't know what to make, you're digging through the fridge, you've got veggies going bad that are pushed to the back, you got some meat you forgot you defrosted, and you just don't know what to do with it. Well, that's my favorite time to make a stir fry. Hi guys, Morgan Eisenberg of Host the Toast here, and today I'm going to share with you all of my tips and tricks to really elevate your stir fry game at home. Now, there are a million ways you can make a stir fry, all different kinds of sauces, all different kinds of mix-ins, but today I'm going to take you through the process with my favorite, a super simple chicken stir fry recipe. This recipe is saucy, it's loaded with vegetables, and it couldn't be easier to make or more versatile. So if you're at home and you're digging through your fridge, you got some stuff you want to throw in, go for it. It's going to be delicious either way. We're going to get started with a marination technique called velveting. Now, velveting is the key to getting that tender, silky meat that you want from a stir fry. To make your velveting mixture, grab a big bowl and start off by adding 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. The cornstarch is crucial to a good stir fry because it coats the meat to protect it from the heat of the wok and it locks in moisture. Then add 2 tablespoons of Zhaojiang wine or dry sherry and 2 tablespoons of soy sauce for flavor. Next, add a tablespoon of oil. The oil will prevent the meat from drying out in the marinade. Now add 2 tablespoons of oyster sauce. Oyster sauce is great, it's savory, it's a little sweet, but you can switch it up here if you want to get creative. Some stir fries use hoisin sauce, fish sauce, chili sauce, even peanut butter, so go ahead and experiment as you get more comfortable. Once that's in, add 1 to 2 tablespoons of sugar and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. The salt and sugar add flavor, and they also help to make the meat more tender, kind of like a brine would. Now just whisk it all together and make sure there's no lumps or clumps in there from the cornstarch. Another cool thing about the cornstarch, by the way, is that it's going to allow us to use this marinade as a sauce later. We're not going to have to do anything extra. We're just going to pour everything into the pan, and that cornstarch is going to help everything thicken up into a nice, great, glossy sauce. Now it's time to move on to the meat. You can really use pretty much any kind of protein you want for a stir fry. Flank steak's great, pork tenderloin, shrimp, tofu, these are all possibilities, and there's even more. But I decided to go with chicken breasts for mine. Whatever meat you choose, you want to use 1 to 1.5 pounds for this recipe. By the way, you might notice that this chicken looks a little bit stiff, and that's because it is. One of my favorite stir fry tips is to pop the meat into the freezer just a little bit before slicing. It'll help you get thinner slices because trying to slice a soft and slippery chicken breast can be challenging. Speaking of slicing, before we get started, it's important to pay attention to the grain of the meat before you go cutting it up. The grain's the direction of the muscle fibers, as you can see here. So to slice, we're going to tuck our fingers in to keep them safe, and then just thinly slice the meat against the grain. It doesn't have to be fully against the grain, just try not to go in completely the same direction. Doing it like this will give you more tender meat, and you'll want to do this if you're using beef or pork as well. You can make your slices real thin if you want. I personally like mine not to be paper thin when it comes to chicken. It's all about your preference. Same thing goes for the size of the strips. If your chicken breasts are really thick, or if you just want smaller pieces, feel free to cut up some of the slices in half so they're more bite-sized. I sliced another tiny chicken breast off camera, so I'm going to quickly add that in here and then toss it into the marinade. Try your best not to splash everywhere in the process of adding your chicken to the marinade, and then once it's all in, you can get to mixing. You can use a spoon like I am, or you can use tongs. You can even get in there with your hands, whatever works best for you. As you can see, I'm really focusing on making sure that I separate the pieces of chicken with my spoon so that that marinade can get in between all of those slices and really coat everything. The marinade can't work its magic if it's not touching the meat. And now that just needs to sit and marinate for about 15 minutes while we prepare the rest of our ingredients. The next ingredients we're going to focus on are the vegetables and the aromatics. I usually use at least 3 cloves of garlic in my stir fries, and to prepare them quickly I have a little tip. You can press the garlic by laying your knife on a garlic clove and use your other hand to carefully press down and crush the garlic. It only takes 2 seconds to peel the garlic once it's crushed, and you've got a head start on mincing that way. When it comes to ginger, I always butcher mine and waste so much trying to peel it with a knife or a potato peeler. But I found that using a spoon like this will take off the skin easily and leave the flesh intact even around the knobby parts. From there, you can mince it up like you do with garlic or use a lemon zester to grate it. Now, I'm not going to use all of this ginger in my stir fry because that'd be major overkill. But I noticed it was getting a bit soft, so I minced it all up, and I'm going to freeze it in ice cube trays so I can just pop out a cube of ginger and add it to my stir fries whenever I need it. For the green onions, just cut off the very ends, and then you can either slice them thinly or simply cut them into larger sections. And that's all for the aromatics. As you can see here, I've got all of my stir-fry mix-ins prepped now. I've got the 3 G's, garlic, ginger, and green onions that we prepared earlier, but I've also got carrots, which I've cut into matchsticks, red bell pepper, which I've thinly sliced, and broccoli, which I've cut into bite-sized pieces. You can use these same veggies, or you can use a variety of other ingredients that you might have hanging around in your fridge. Some of my favorites for stir fries are green beans, snap peas, mushrooms, and water chestnuts. You can also do baby corn, cabbage, asparagus, zucchini, and bok choy. Try to cut your veggies fairly evenly so that they cook evenly. This is a little bit harder with broccoli because it tends to separate a little as you cut it, but that's all right. You can have some difference in size as long as it's in the same neighborhood. And since we've got everything finished with prepping, we're ready to get to stir frying. To stir fry, you're going to want to let your wok heat up before you add any oil or ingredients, so go ahead and put it over high heat. If you don't have a wok at home, don't worry, you can use any large high-walled skillet. You just want to make sure that there's plenty of surface area to move all the ingredients around. Once the wok is hot, add some oil. I use canola oil, and then add in your broccoli. If you're using other dense, thick vegetables like asparagus or big chunks of carrot, now's the time you'd want to add those as well. They're going to take the longest to cook through, so we work with them first. Stir the broccoli around till it starts to brown in spots, and then we're going to do something you generally think you're not supposed to do with stir fries. We're going to add water. Usually, any excess water on stir-fried vegetables is bad because it encourages them to get mushy, but for low moisture vegetables like broccoli, you need to add that liquid to help them cook through. So go ahead and continue to cook until the broccoli's tender and bright green, and then set it aside and clean out your skillet. Place your pan back over high heat, and when it's hot, add more oil. Then when it's ready, add in your faster cooking vegetables like your red bell peppers, thinly sliced carrots, and green onions. Stir fry those veggies and try and separate them so they're not piling on top of each other, because that would encourage them to steam rather than cook from the heat of the pan. If you have a lot of vegetables and they're crowding the pan up, it's better to work in batches. When the veggies are perfectly tender crisp, remove them from heat and set them aside with the broccoli. Return the pan to heat, add more oil if you need to, and it's time to get going with the chicken. Carefully pour the meat and all the marinade into the hot wok or skillet. Don't go too fast because you don't want too much splatter. Then quickly separate the chicken and move it around to get contact with the pan. Just keep moving everything around until your chicken is nicely browned and glossy. And don't let anything burn on the bottom. It'll only take a few minutes for the chicken to cook through. At this point, if you are getting a little bit of burning or if your sauce is drying up, just add a bit of water and that'll loosen everything up and get things saucy again. Finally, we add in the garlic and the ginger. For a lot of recipes, you'd add these ingredients first or early in the cooking process, but for stir fries, it helps to wait so you don't risk burning them from the high heat. Now we can add back all of those tender vegetables from before and we can mix it all together with our chicken and our sauce so we get a beautiful, fully incorporated stir fry. And at this point, it should really start to look like a stir fry. You've got those bright colors, you've got your pops, vegetables, you've got your meat, your sauce, and it's really all coming together. In fact, you can serve it right now just like this. But what I like to do is to finish it off with a little bit of sesame seed on top. It's a nice garnish and it adds some extra flavor as well. I like to sprinkle a lot of sesame seeds on, kind of gives it that restaurant takeout feel. Feels really authentic and it looks great too. And you know what? This smells even better. Those of you who are cooking along at home right now know exactly what I'm talking about. You can smell the chicken, you can smell the sauce. It is making me so hungry and I can't wait to dig in. Before I started with the stir fry, I started preparing some rice, so now it's ready and just in time for us to serve. I'm gonna give myself some really big portions here because this smells so good. My eyes are probably bigger than my stomach, but you know, can you blame me? And I'm actually gonna sprinkle some extra sesame seeds on top, I think, and I think some green onion too, just so that we can finish this off and make it look beautiful. I know we're doing takeout at home now, but it never hurts to take it up one step, right? So I think this looks great, but the real question is, does it taste as good as it looks? I'm not gonna leave you hanging, so I'll go ahead, grab a fork, and find out. And if you're cooking along at home too, feel free to dig in with me, and we can experience this together. All right, so here we go, the moment of truth. Take a big bite here, make sure I get everything on the fork. That's good. That is one good stir fry. It's just the right amount of saucy. It's got a great balance of flavors. You got plenty of vegetables in there. The chicken is great, it's so tender. I absolutely love this, and I hope you do too. I had a great time cooking with you guys today and going through all of the tips that I have for a good stir fry. I hope that you guys had just as much fun as I did. Now let's go enjoy our meals.